I can't keep holding on if I want to receive something new from the Lord. Like, I can't keep holding on to my past. And so I told him, like,
the girl is married. You got married at what, 22?
21.
21?
I got married at 21, and then a couple weeks later I turned 22. Freshman year, Arianna was not ready for joy.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Joy Masbarkiza. If this is the first time you've stumbled upon this channel, today I have my first ever guest. You know, my first guest
ever?
Yes.
Aw, I'm
special.
I'm so, what's the word? It's not flattered.
Honored?
Honored.
Yes.
I'm so honored.
Yes. This is Mrs. Arianna Ratliff.
It is. Thank you for the introduction.
Insert applause.
Thank you. You're so kind.
Of course. Okay, so we just wanted this video to kind of be like a girl talk type video. And
honest.
We're both, yes, very honest, authentic conversation.
Yeah.
We are both Christians.
Yes,
we started following the Lord, I feel like pretty young.
Yeah, I grew up knowing the Lord.
Yeah.
And I don't think I know any different. Which is a huge blessing, I now realize.
Yeah. And even though we grew up knowing the Lord,
doesn't mean it was easy.
We believed a lot of lies from the enemy, from the world, who we're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
What life is supposed to go like just because we're Christians.
Oh yeah, or look like.
Exactly. So we're here to talk about that. But yeah, so one of the first lies I wanted to talk about was the fact that I believed that God's love for me was dependent on my performance.
Yeah.
So, you know, growing up as a pastor's daughter, serving in the church, thinking that, oh, if I'm doing all of these things for God, then he must love me. Or then his love for me will increase. Like, oh, my daughter, she's just doing so much for me. But God's actually more interested in what he's doing in me, you know?
Heart. Yeah.
And my motives for doing things. Because if I'm serving in the church or doing YouTube just for my own glory,
but you're doing things
doing things, then that's not pleasing to the Lord, you know.
It's just like he says, like, he sees your heart. And so it's nothing to do something if your heart's not in the right place.
Exactly.
So if anyone is struggling with that currently, I've been reading Romans, and it talks so much about, like, it's not your works, it's not your faith, it's just God's grace. And so it just, like, doesn't mean that you don't have to work. It doesn't mean that you don't have to have faith.
Right.
It's the combination of both that exemplify that the Lord lives in you, but it's just because of him, like, you're saved.
Right.
Like, there's nothing that makes you more of a daughter of God than the fact that he died for you.
Exactly.
But that can be really hard to understand and just to get there. That's
because I mean, the world tells us, even starting at a young age, like, if you want your teacher to be proud of you, what you have to do well in class,
get good grades.
Same thing with our parents. I mean, our parents are supposed to love us unconditionally. Of course. But sometimes you feel like the only way to please your parents is to do all of these good things, because when you do this bad thing, then they'll get mad. And then we like project that to the Lord, and we think that, oh, if I do ... then God will love me, then God will be proud of me.
Yeah, I think when we do that, we fail to recognize that God is not like every other human being in our lives.
Exactly.
Like, first of all, he's not a human being. He's perfect, he's holy, and he is set apart from all of that. So he might be a father figure, or like a higher figure, like a professor, or like a parent, but he's not the same. You know, like, he's so much different, and thank goodness that he is, because if he was like our parents or like our teachers, we would never be able to please him and get him to love us. Thankfully, we don't have to. So that's a huge relief. I think the more we get to know and understand who God is, the more we get to know and understand who we are, and just how to live life and walk life with those facts.
Right.
You know.
That's good. See why I have her on here? Like, she just loves to talk about the Lord. And
I love to talk, period.
that's also true.
do love to talk about the Lord too. I can't believe Joy and I did not become like really close until our last year here.
Imagine.
Which is so sad. But I feel like freshman year, Arianna was not ready for Joy.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Yeah?
Okay. What do you want to talk about?
No, as in like the fact that you weren't ready. And I don't think I was ready to be your friend around that time either.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, no.
Like, okay. Yeah,
It's crazy.
I feel like I don't know, I came here not knowing what to expect. And I think part of me was still, we both come from different countries in the US. And so I feel like I came ready to be in the US, but as soon as I came here, all of my friends were Hispanic. Like that was just my safe spot.
Right.
Like I was in the US,
right,
but deep down I was still with my culture in some way, because like my whole group of friends was Hispanic. And so I feel like even though I was changing, I was not actively ready for that change. And so it was hard for me to seek out friendship in different cultures. Like whether that was American or European, it was just hard for me, even though it was not on purpose.
Yeah.
And so the more I started like separating from what I had back home and that same culture, the easier it was for me to like branch out and like talk to other people, even though it was not on purpose. But I also come from a high school where like every other single person looked like me.
Same.
And it was very small, but it's just like there's so many people here now and almost no one looks like me. You know, and so how do you transition to that? Which is, so that's why I don't think I was ready for it. And I was also like, I was not as mature, I feel like. And you're very wise and very mature and very joyful. I feel like I would have not started well our friendship if I met you freshman year.
That's what I was going to say too about me freshman year. Like, I just wasn't a very good friend either. Yeah. I don't even know if I had, like, I wasn't pouring into my friendships and being like, hey, let's spend time together. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I was very much focused on, like, me, like, oh, I need alone time. And just focused on like what I want to do instead of like what does this person need. Yeah. You know?
I think we were like in both extremes.
Right.
Like I was with my friends 24/7. Like, come over, we're having a sleepover. It was the same group of girls, which like I still hang out with, but it was just like 24/7. And you were not
the
with
opposite.
friends at all.
Yeah.
But that led into me sophomore year becoming an RA, having a room to myself. Just completely isolating myself. Of like, I'm working all day, I'm surrounded with people all day, I'm just gonna go to my room and be by myself. I need time for myself. I need time for myself. After a year of like kind of being a little burnt out of like people, friends and people and friends and people and friends and people and friends. And so you slowly grew into like letting more people in, and I grew into letting less people in. And now we're both into like,
we are.
No, I need time for myself. Yeah. No, I need time with Joe. You know, so it's just like we were both growing from one place to another, but it just looked completely different. You know, so
that just makes me think of how, like, even in that time, I was praying for godly friends.
Yeah,
and God was like fashioning you during that time, and in that moment you feel like, God, I'm praying for this, I want it right now. What if he's preparing that person to be your friend, and he's preparing you to be a good friend to that friend?
That is true. That is so true, because I feel like we lose sight that just because we ask for something, it's gonna look exactly how we want it to look like. So if God would have been, okay, here you go, you know, like some parents, like you're just like, okay, here you go, like stop bothering me. Yeah. And God would have given me like certain friendships, we might not be friends anymore. Yeah. Like to this point, because like you didn't know how to take care of me and I didn't know how to take care of you. Right. And pour into each other. But God is so gracious and so rich in mercy that he said, let me steward your heart and let me steward your heart. And then when the time is right, the Lord will make it happen. And now we're friends. And now I'm like, Joey, can I see you like every single day? Please. Bro, we do see each other every day. But it's like a weird mixture of like school and then just like actually hanging out together because we're also in the same major. That's how this all happened.
How we met.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, now that you're married, have you seen a shift in... Wait, let's circle back. Let's backtrack. This girl is married. You got married at what, 22?
21.
21?
I got married at 21 and then a couple weeks later I turned 22.
How did that happen?
It's such a long story, y'all, and I talk a lot, but bear with me. Okay, I was playing volleyball when I was back home before coming to the States, and when I came to the States, we were doing intramurals, and I joined a random group of girls that were just, I don't even know how that group happened. Like, I think we just had, I think it was Maddie. I think she knew someone that was playing volleyball, a friend in our major, and I just ended up playing with them. I think we were playing against her. Either way, I ended up playing a volleyball team with girls, and one of our last matches on my fall semester freshman year, I hurt my knee. And so I was jumping, and then when I was coming down, I landed with one leg first, but I was coming like fairly high, and so I landed and all my weight just went to my knee, and so it just kind of went to the back. I was also just going through having gained a lot of weight, just with like a lot of anxiety and just like mixed emotions and adjusting to food and culture here. So when I tell you freshman 15,
bro, it's like freshman 20.
It was fresh for sure. I don't know the number, but it was just a lot. Like, I was not training anymore. I was way heavier, and it was just not good for my body. And so, long story short, I was absolutely scared of going to the doctor here, because never been to the doctor here. I have no idea what's happening, how much it's gonna cost. And so it was towards the end of the semester, so thankfully I was about to go back home for Christmas break. And so I get home, I tell my parents. I had been wearing crutches for a little while just because I couldn't just fully place my leg on the ground. And it just hurt, and just walking a lot around campus, it was just a lot of pain. I couldn't sleep at night. Like, I had to sleep very particularly in order to not have pain, as it was just a lot of things. And so when I went back home, we went to the doctor, but we couldn't go until like January because it was Christmas break, so the doctor was out on vacation. And so I had to wait until January, and then I went in January, and he wanted me to go get some x-rays because he was scared that something had happened, like, and I was gonna need surgery. And that was heartbreaking for me because all of my years playing soccer and volleyball and whatever I was doing, I never broke anything or tore anything. I had a couple of injured ankles, but nothing too serious. And so I just couldn't believe that now that I was just playing for fun, I had gotten hurt. Yeah. And so when he said surgery, even though he said maybe, I just started praying. Like, every day I would just pray over my knee. I would ice it and then do hot and ice it and hot, and just kept praying about it. And then I got back to school for the spring semester, and while I was home, I lost a lot of weight just eating and trying to heal my relationship with food, and just trying to like be more mindful and just cooking. And so I come back and I just felt like renewed. I feel like I cut my hair and like it looked different, and I had less weight, and I was just trying to heal with my knee and everything. And I was also just like healing from a bad relationship. I was in a relationship for 5 years, almost 5 years. My only relationship. And another lie that I believe through that was that as a Christian, you date to marry. And so if you date someone, you marry.
You have to marry them.
And that kept me around for more than the Lord had for me. Yeah. And so at this point, we were still talking, even though I had already like come here and was trying to move on. And I just realized, like, I was too scared to let go. Because I thought, like, freshman year, like, I'm moving to a different country, I'm going to a Christian school, everyone's a Christian, everyone's a Christian, and so everyone's walking with the Lord. And so I'm gonna meet my husband as soon as I get there. Fall semester, no husband, let me tell you. And so I feel like I was still holding on to my past relationship, because it was the only thing that I knew, the only like comfort that I knew in a relationship way. And so January rolls around and I'm here and I'm healing and we're still talking. So much healing needed to be happen, not just physically, but like emotionally, spiritually. Right. I was just trying to heal. And so I just decided like to start doing things for myself and for the Lord instead of just for like other people.
Yeah.
And so one day I was just doing some like strengthening exercises for my knee, and I was at the gym listening to this podcast, and it was just talking about this girl that had been praying to get healed for a really long time, and she never did until this one time at church, and the Lord healed her. And she knew that she had got healed then and there, because if she would have gotten healed in secret, that was not going to have the effect that the Lord wanted to do. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was just something along the lines of like God's purpose in when he healed her. It was greater than just healing her whenever she wanted to be healed. And so I was like, whenever the Lord wants to heal me, it's because that's going to be good, and it's going to be his will, and it's going to be perfect. And if that time doesn't come, God is still good, and God is still great, and God is still perfect. And so I just started walking differently, of like, let me take care of my body because I need to take care of my body because it's a temple of the Holy Spirit. But also just let me trust the Lord that whenever he heals me, it's because that's when he wants to. And so February comes around, almost 2 years ago now, and they're having a worship and prayer night over at our Bible building here on campus. And so they're doing this, and to not make it super long, I didn't want to go. I thought I was not going to have time to go. My friends went while I was working, and so I just ended up going by myself. And so I go, and I had assignments due that night. So I was just like waiting for a good moment to leave. But I just had that urgency in my heart of like, go, stay, not yet. And I was like, okay. And then I leave, and when I'm going out, I see a friend that was there by himself. And I remember that I had posted a story of the event, just thinking like, Lord, if there's at least one person that needs to come, let that person see this so that they can come. And so I see him there, and I'm like, hey. And so I like welcome him in. And so I'm inside again. I didn't leave. And so after a little while, people start praying and sharing testimonies, and the worship kind of stopped, and this guy goes up the stage to say something, and I was like, great, like this is my time to leave, like worship stopped.
You were still planning on
I was ready to get out of there. And so this guy gets up the stage, and I'm ready to leave, and he just goes, hey, like super random by the way, but he just goes, hey, like the Lord put this in my heart, but is there anyone in the room with left knee pain? I would like to pray for you. And before I know it, I was all the way to the back, and I just go, and then I realized that my hand was up, and I said, no, never mind. And he goes, hey, do you mind if we pray for you? And so I walked down the aisle, because he was in between of the two like pews. I walked down the aisle all the way to the altar, because that's where he was, by myself, the Lord just leading me there. And he just goes like, hey, this is my name, like what's your name, we're gonna pray for you, like do you mind if we place our hands over you to pray? And I was like, sure. And him and like the other people, they just prayed for me. And I get up, I like move around, see if there's anything weird, and I'm like, and I thought I was just gonna be it. Like I had never been in anything similar of like pray you're healed. Great.
Yeah.
You know? So I was just like, I didn't know what to expect, what to feel, what to do. And they're like, nope, let's pray again. And they prayed for me, and I was like, okay. And I do the same thing. I move around, up and down, and I just start crying. Because I could move my knee like I hadn't moved it in like 3 months.
Wow.
And I just start sobbing. And at this point, like, we just get back to worshiping. I want to show you this video because he just sent it to me today. As I still went back to my room to get my computer and then come back to do my assignments. Because at that point, I didn't want to leave. Mm-hmm. And so I ran for the first time in like 3 months. And my friend got this video of me running.
Aww.
Because we were going to the apartment to get my computer. And she was just laughing.
You're like, Jesus healed me.
Yeah. And I was just like over the moon. I was like, I had never like experienced God's power in this way. And I had never met this guy. I had never seen him. I had no idea who he was. And if you know my husband, you know that he's not easy to just go by unnoticed.
Yeah.
Like, I can be unnoticed, but he's just like, if you see him, like, you're going to remember his face. And so, never had seen this guy in my life. And I'm going to share with you something that I've never told you before.
Okay.
But, like, back mm-hmm. to, like, when worship was still going on. Mm-hmm. I'm just, like, praying. And, like, my eyes are closed. And, like, you know, like, when you get into praying when, like, everything else around you just, like, it's quiet. Mm-hmm. And, like, worship was going on. I couldn't hear a thing. And I'm just, like, I'm eyes closed, looking down. I'm just praying. And all of a sudden, I start, like, hearing, like, this voice singing. But it was the only voice in the whole room that I could hear. And it was loud. And it was just, like, I could hear it so much. I could hear it behind me. But it was the only voice that I could hear. And I look back, like, who's, like, screaming? I don't know. I look back, and there's, like, a guy on the floor, on his knees, face down, just singing. And I could only see, like, his back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's that? And I just go back to praying. And as I'm saying, like, who's that? And go back, I just hear the Lord say, like, that's your husband.
Whoa.
And I forget. And then the Lord, he knows me so well. Because I was so scared to date again after what had happened. Mm. And I did not trust myself to pick, to choose again. Because I had already chosen, and that did not go well. And so I did not, like, those words were not in my brain in the way of, like, afterwards where I saw him with the same shirt, I was thinking, like, oh, that's my husband. Or, like, when I went up the stage and, like, he was praying for me, I was not thinking, oh, that's my husband. Mm. Like, that was not on my brain. I was not thinking about that. Like, long story short, like, after we prayed and the night kind of ended, him and another girl that prayed for me, they asked for my phone number because I told him that I couldn't sleep. And so they told me, like, hey, we're going to text you tomorrow, see how you're doing. And so he asked for my phone number, but so did the girl. Mm. And so I was like, that's okay, that's completely normal. When I get to my room and I'm getting ready to go to bed, I'm just thinking, like, that's my husband? Like, it came back to me that moment. And I was like, Lord, you be in control. Like, you just, like, here it is.
Yeah.
Like, don't let my emotions get in the way. Don't get my thoughts get in the way. It's yours. Like, I do not trust myself to do this. Like, this is yours. And I just started jumping in the restroom because I was like, oh my goodness, what just happened? And so we kept texting back and forth, kind of, after that day. And he was on his way to Dallas for a work thing. And I texted him, like, I remember this vividly, and I was just like, hey, like, are you from Dallas? I was just trying to make conversation with him. And he goes, like, yeah, I'm from Dallas. Where are you from? And so he found out that I was not from here. And he just goes, like, how did you end up in ICU? And, like, that's a huge part of my testimony. And so I just told him, like, hey, I'm gonna type it, like, give me a couple minutes. And he just goes, like, oh, don't feel like you have to type it out. We can just go out for coffee and you can tell me. And at that point, I'm just like,
smooth. Mace was smooth with it.
He continues to be so smooth. But we ended up going out for coffee. We were at Monk's for 4 hours.
Wow.
I missed my class because both of our phones were like face down, not even on the table. Didn't see the time, didn't see anything. And that moment I was just like, Lord, whether he's a friend or more, no, whether he's my husband or no, this is the kind of man that I want to have in my life. Like, this is in a one-time conversation, like, this is a man that fears the Lord. Mm-hmm. This is a man that loves the Lord. Like, he's a good example. And I just knew that he was completely different from any other man that I have ever met before. From any other boy that I had ever met before.
Yeah.
And I was like, Lord, whether this is my husband or not, I know that he's a good man. And I know that he's someone good to have around. And thank goodness. Because he's still around. And he will be. But we just kept hanging out. And we just kept... like getting to like, turns out we were on the same ligne. I had never seen him.
Wow. And
we started just going out on walks after, and eventually on a date. At this point, when I met Mace, my husband now, I was still talking to my ex. Mm. And I just felt convicted. I was like, I can't keep holding on if I want to receive something new from the Lord. Like, I can't keep holding on to my past. Mm. And so I told him, like, hey, we need to talk. And he knew. And I was like, I met someone. And I need to honor and I need to respect him. Because we're talking. And whether he goes somewhere or not, I can't disrespect him by still talking to you. And so that's how it went. And then just like, it was just like so many lies that were healing in the process of like, not everyone that's a Christian is walking with the Lord. Just because you're dating someone doesn't mean you have to marry them if they're not truly a man or a woman after God's heart and like someone that fears the Lord. And just like so many little things that started changing in the process. Mm-hmm. And also just like so many things that happened in my last relationship that were just filled with shame. Mm-hmm. And like, oh, don't talk about this because they're not gonna like you. Or don't mention him. Don't mention this because he's gonna see who you really are. Like, all those things are lies. And so Mason, being the great man that he is, he was like, he knew that we had to have the hard conversations because before we were 5 years deep into our relationship. Right. And we had those conversations. And he still knew that he wanted to marry me. Like, all those lies that the enemy was telling me of, like, don't tell him this, don't share this, like, you're a good girl, like, don't say this. All those lies that he was telling me not to tell him were if I chose to believe that, they were eventually gonna come. And he was gonna find out one way or another.
Yeah, one way or another.
And I had the power of, like, how I wanted to tell him and how I wanted to be honest. And once I confessed those things, I was like, they have no weight on me anymore. Like, I have no shame about anything anymore. And so, that is how I met my husband. It's a long story, but it's one that I enjoy talking about. I feel like it has been such a blessing. Yeah. Because there's no way of telling it that you don't get to talk about the Lord. Yeah, exactly.
So, only God gets the glory from that story.
And I couldn't have prayed for a better story just because we both, like him and I, we both have friends. And I have family members that they're not believers or that they're not walking with the Lord. And so when they ask, like, how did you meet? I can't just tell them, like, oh, you know. Like, I can choose to tell them we just met at school. But I am robbing to be just a beacon of light of what the Lord can do, of what he did. Like, I can choose how I tell our story. And I can choose if I just want to tone it down so that they don't think that I'm weird. I laugh too much. So the video got cut because I talked too much. I don't know what was the last thing that we shared or that it was recorded.
Oh, you talked about how you were constantly surrendering it to God even when you were dating him, like.
Oh yeah, I was just God, your emotions. Straight up scared of trusting in myself. Of just like thinking that I can choose for myself and I know what's best for myself. And so I genuinely like didn't think that I was gonna be able to do it again. And so it was just something that I kept giving to the Lord. And like now, thankfully, we're 6 months married tomorrow, which has been such a joy. It doesn't make it easier. Just because you're living with the Lord, walking with the Lord, doesn't mean that it's easier. It just means that your eyes get to be set in heaven, and that you know what's waiting for you. Because like if we focus on what we gain in this life, it's just emptiness. Like I'm gonna continue to work for things that are not worth it. But when I understand that my life, like it's in heaven, like I have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And like this is temporary. And so it has not been easy. It has not been easier than my past relationship. It's just been sanctifying. Like my past relationship was just full of shame, and now I just get to be sanctified because I get to see how selfish I am. Because like the Lord called us to serve one another, to put the other one first. The world tells you like you're first. Do what you want to do. Serve yourself. And so trying to fight that every day of like, I wake up but I'm tired and I just want to shower and get to class, versus I wake up like, let me make our bed. Can I make you breakfast? And it goes both ways. Like I think something that helped me a lot was that growing up, one of my prayers always was, and thankfully it was just like, Lord, I want to be a wife that submits to her husband, and I want to have a husband that's worth submitting to. Because I just knew the importance of the calling. Like I just knew like
the weight of it.
Yeah. Like. And so it's not easier, but it's worth it. And I think I would have never thought I was going to be married in school. I never thought I was going to be taking finals and having my husband help me study. But I also know that I thought I was going to marry someone else. And so now I just get to see how evidently the Lord's plans are better than anything like I could ever come for. Like just think of. Yeah. And so it's just a constant thing, a constant learning process. And one thing that May says all the time is just that now that we're one, the target against the enemy like it's bigger. Because it used to be you walking,
and he hates that,
with the Lord, and me walking with the Lord, and now it's us walking with the Lord. And so of course the enemy's going to try and come and like steal and destroy and kill and just like all these things, because he doesn't like that. Yeah. But that just gives me reassurance that I'm doing something right for the Lord, you know. Yeah. But that's the story.
That's so good.
Such a long
story. Good. I love listening to your story, and it's encouraged me so much too, just in my walk with God, and as I'm praying for future marriage, like let God choose for you. Like, don't try to be in the driver's seat when it comes to anything in your life, honestly. Yeah. Like it's always better when God makes that choice for you.
Only unless you're actually driving.
Exactly. No, you know, sometimes
I thought you were gonna say no.
No, sometimes I'm like, God, take the wheel. Like I can make mistakes. My mind can just, you know,
absolutely,
get distracted and I lose control of the wheel. But if God is, you know, in control, even if I'm actually driving,
he's gonna take you where you need to be.
Exactly. No, and he's gonna keep me safe.
That is true.
But yeah, that's very encouraging.
Thank you. I think it's just not only being I was an RA last year, like I mentioned, and I think every time I had one of my girls come to me because of boy problems, and I could relate to them exactly because of what I had gone through. And I was just, every time I got to talk, as much as I wanted to forget about my past relationship, every time that I got to talk about my past relationship, it was to pour into those girls. Yeah. And just to like, don't stay there. Like, leave.
The test became the testimony.
Oh, word! I'm about to start preaching. That's good, Joey. I love that phrase. I'm gonna use that more often. The amount of times that I just got to tell them, like, if you think the Lord doesn't have anything better for you, and that's the best that you're gonna find, and you want to settle. That was me 2 years ago, and like, look at the man that I have now. And everyone says like a lot of my girls and my friends, they're just like, my future husband needs to meet Mace, because if he doesn't approve, I don't want him. And
he's a great guy.
That is such a blessing to me.
Yeah.
Just like knowing like other girls like look up to my husband, and not in a weird way, but just like knowing that they don't have to settle, but that there's more godly men like him out there. That is like such an encouragement of like, don't settle.
Yep.
Like there's so much more, and I think it's good to not settle, but it's not also good to just force it, because a lot of people just fall into the trap of like ring by spring, or like I need to get married before I'm a certain age, and all of that pressure and worldly expectation, even if they seem good, because marriage is something good, like it's something from the Lord, but even that, it just can fall into lies. And just like, the Lord can do so much in your singleness, and I know you know that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you don't have to be married to be doing something for the Lord. You don't have to be married to be happy. Like,
and also, if you're doing nothing in your singleness and just waiting to be married, what?
Yeah, but
that's so dangerous, because you're supposed to have a unified vision as a couple. But if he's the only one that wants to do things, and he's just coming into your life, and you're like, oh, I've just waited for you this whole time. He's like,
it's not a switch. You're not gonna change the day
you
get married.
You're not going to change, exactly.
You're not gonna start having this fire for the Lord the day you get married, just because now you have a husband or a wife. Like, that's just not how it works. It's something that you're building, that you're working on. Like, your walk with the Lord's gonna remain whether or not you have a spouse.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you need to be a good steward with whatever the Lord has given you. Like, if that's one friend, if that's two friends, if that's a husband or no husband, if that's a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment, if that's a 20-year-old car or the car of the year, like whatever the God has placed in your life, if you're not a good steward about it, like of it, it's not about what you have, it's about what you do with it. You know. And so whether you have your dream house or you're dreaming of a different house, like, you have to be faithful to the Lord and just recognize what he has placed in front of you. So whether that's a husband or just singleness, you have to do like the most out of it, and just find joy in that.
So that's so good. Okay, one of my last questions, because this is what,
no, 8 minutes? You're making me...
We'll probably have to split it into 2 videos, because we just,
So part video in 4 parts?
Yeah, right? Welcome to part 4.
Yeah. We have our whole show now, just from one video.
Something I wanted to ask. I've heard married women say that, once I got married, it's like I lost friends. Has that been your experience? And how do you feel your friends could support you better in marriage? You know, like, because on our end, I'm speaking for all the single friends. On our end, it's like, I want to give you your space, now you're married. But it can go to an extreme where I'm like, I'm not even inviting Ari to anything. I'm not gonna. She's married.
She's married. She's not coming.
She's not coming.
Yeah.
Like, I just start to assume. So how has that changed,
question.
and how could we support each other?
That is a really good question. I think as far as like how friendships changed, they have, but change is not always bad. They have changed in the way of like, they know that my husband is my priority. Like, it's the Lord, then it's my husband. And so having selfless and understanding friends, it's important. Of like, I love you and I care for you.
Right.
But I know that I don't come first.
And you build that in your singleness. That network of friends.
Yeah, exactly. You need to know how to have like healthy boundaries. And just like, I think a huge thing that has allowed me to, to transition from like single, dating, engaged, married, has been communicating. And just knowing that through each season, my friends are praying for me. Like getting to the week of my wedding and knowing that they had been praying for him. They had been praying for me. They had been praying for us, for our marriage. Like knowing that even if I don't see them every day, I can tell them like, hey, I need your prayer.
Yeah.
Like just understanding like friendship is not just being with each other all the time, what we were talking about.
Yeah.
But just like friendship is just being. And so I think it has just been a huge thing of like just understanding that different seasons of lives come with change.
Yeah.
And just being okay with that. I think it has definitely been hard, just in the sense of like I'm already older than most of my friends. I'm already more mature than most of my friends. And now I'm married. And I'm the first of my friends to be married. And so when you add up all those things, it can feel like a huge gap.
Yeah.
Of like, we're not the same when we were hanging out like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And that can definitely be like just a gap, and just like have it be harder. But that's where you just keep praying, keep being intentional, like still caring for your friends and letting them care for you. Because just because I'm married doesn't mean that all of my help comes from my husband. Like all my help comes from the Lord.
Right.
But not only through my husband.
Right.
Like I think I have understood how you need to understand how to bring your friends into it and how to bring your community into it. Because whether or not you're married, you always need community.
Right.
And so just like letting them know like, hey, I'm having a hard time with this. Like having older couples that pour into us. And just like, I was honestly like just talking about this the other day with like one of our older married couples about like the wife. And I was just telling her like it's been a little hard just trying to find time for like spending with girls, and time for myself, and time for my husband, because I'm the first to get married.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm kind of taking one and just like for the team and just figuring it out. And so it can definitely be hard, but I think it's not impossible.
Right.
Like if I don't tell you that I'm having a hard time and that I need you to pray for me, it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm married or not. I'm just not communicating with you. And so I just think that I was scared that it was going to affect my friendships. And yeah, I don't see them every day, but when I see them, it's intentional. Yeah. You know, whether it's 30 minutes that we get together or like a whole night, it's just intentional. Yeah. And it goes both ways too. Like I could just sit in the fact that I'm married and you're not, and so you don't understand me, and you're not gonna get it, and so I'm not gonna talk to you.
And I'm like, you're married, you don't understand singleness, so I'm not gonna talk to you.
Exactly. And so it goes both ways. Yeah. And so like, there's obviously things that I don't share. Like one, it's our marriage.
Exactly.
2, like it's private, and 3, like you're not in that season, you don't need to be thinking about those things. But that doesn't mean that I don't share.
Right.
I find who to share it with. I bring it to the Lord. I find ways to communicate about it, and so it's just adjusting. And I'm not saying it like this because I have it figured out. I say it like this because I am figuring it out, and it looks different. Like I might know it here, but when it comes to it, I might not do it.
Right.
You know, and so it's just like, I was definitely scared that everything was going to change and I was not going to see my friends anymore. But I was like, it doesn't have to be like this. I think one of the hardest things have been finding community for the both of us. Like other married friends. Because he was a year removed from like Abilene when he left. And so coming back and like, now his friends are gone. And the friends that he has here, they're not married. And so he doesn't have like a lot of friends here. And then he has like people that he works with or people that he knows, but he's just coming whether they've known each other for 5 years and they've been married friends for like so long. And so just trying to adjust the both of us into like your group of married friends or like this group of married, it's that's been harder. I feel like fine, because all of our married friends were back in Dallas, and so now just like, oh, but I want to go see my girls, and it's like, well, but I work 2 nights out of the week, and I have night classes the other 2 nights of the week, and so the one night that I have left, that's date night, and so then I want to rest the other night, right? And so then like, when do I see my friends? But if I want to go off and see my friends, when does, like, what is he doing? You know, and it's not necessarily like a sacrifice, but it's like, I'm gonna be smart, and I'm gonna choose to spend time with other people when he is at work, because that way I don't have to leave him by himself, because I don't want to.
Yeah.
But it's also just like, I'm still prioritizing my friendships and like meeting with other people without having to leave my husband behind.
Yeah.
Because it's good to prioritize your friendships, but not before your marriage. You know? And so it's just working, and I need to stop talking. I'm gonna just keep going, and that's dangerous. What about you, Joey? What do you have to say for this?
I mean, so first of all, about 4, the camera's blinking.
It's about to die.
Should have charged it. But about 4 of my friends got married last year.
Oh wow!
So,
I knew Ivy and I.
Ivy, you, Elizabeth, and my other friend Vicky.
Okay.
No, there's another. Okay, let's just say most of the community that I've built here all got married last year. So that shift has been a little bit different to where I always have to keep that in mind. Like, hey, their husband is their priority. Doesn't mean that they love me less.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
At all, but they're in a new season now, and I need to respect that. And when it comes to talking about singleness and stuff, they're not the first person that I might go to. I might go to somebody that can relate to me.
Yeah.
Yes, they can speak into it because they've been single before. But there's certain things that I can share with my single friends, and I'll just be like, oh, because you're single, like, we get each other.
Sit in it right
exactly,
now.
just like a married friend would get certain things that I wouldn't get for you, you know?
Yeah.
So just like learning that has been really good, and it's given me insight. I love that my friends have gotten married before me, because it's given me insight to like, hey, this is what you should expect. Like,
Yeah.
thank you, God. You know, I needed it.
Absolutely. The Lord knows us so well.
He does.
Like, if he knew that you needed to get married first and go through it first, you would have.
Yeah.
I feel like he knew that I needed to get married first and go through it. And it's just everything he does is like so full of purpose. Like, he has not forgotten about you. He is not late.
He's not late.
He is not busy doing something else. Like, his timing is so perfect. And so you don't have to understand it to know that it's perfect. And just remember, like, every time you're like, oh, I'm not married yet, I'm not this yet, I haven't gotten that promotion yet, whatever it applies to, when the time is right, the Lord would make it happen. Yeah. And so it might not look like your timeline, but not everything runs on your timeline. And thankfully, like, everything runs on the Lord's timeline. And so now, like, a year and a half after Mason and I met, I got to walk down the aisle again to him at the altar by myself, and the Lord knows why. And like, that's a story for another day. But would I have wanted to do it differently? Maybe. Definitely yes, a couple of months ago. But just because it doesn't feel good, it doesn't mean that the Lord is not good. You know, like, what's going on doesn't change anything from the Lord's character.
Yeah.
And so, I know that you know this, and it's just like,
it's a good reminder.
It is a good reminder. It's just like, well, first it cut because of time constraints. Now it cut because the battery died.
Yeah.
We need to just keep it short. But let the Holy Spirit move.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, the Lord is perfect, the Lord's good, and everything he does is with a purpose. So whether you're single, engaged, married, dating, whatever you're going through, just trust the Lord. because he knows how to get you where you need to be. And he's going to be with you through every single step of the way.
Exactly. Well, thank you for being on my
channel.
Thank you for
having me.
I know anybody who's watched this has been blessed by it.
That would be amazing. That's my prayer.
If you guys want her to come back, if you have any questions for her, let me know. And she will be back. Okay,
I will be back. Thank you for having me. It was really fun. Thanks for being my friend. I'm really thankful for you. Thank you, Jesus. All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.